topic on everyone's lips. People on the street, on social media are talking about Syria and the possible impending strike the US might launch on the country if the Senate votes in favor of President Barack Obama's proposed measure today. Here are some of the details.
2.5 years, Syria has been plagued by civil war, tearing apart the fabric of an ancient land. On the 21st of August, 1,400 people were killed in an alleged sarin nerve gas attack in Damascus. This was the tipping point that led US President Barack Obama to call for an assault on military facilities in Syria. But President Bashar al-Assad of Syria has denied that his government attacked civilians with chemical weapons, and indeed there is no concrete evidence to suggest that they did. Despite the alleged lack of evidence, the US Senate will vote today on whether to strike Syria, coincidentally on the 12th anniversary of the September 11 terrorist attacks. 6 in 10 Americans oppose military airstrikes against Syria, but opinion is divided, with social media campaigns in a frenzy. Most of the responses on social media websites speak to the alleged hypocrisy of the US, since the country has been proven to have used Agent Orange, a chemical weapon in Vietnam. But up until last week, the internet was more interested in Miley Cyrus than the Syrian conflict. The situation is a potential powder keg of disaster, with Iran promising to attack Israel if the US attacks Syria, and Russia in a corner with its obligation to defend its ally, Syria.
Consensus is that a strike now will not end the civil war or permit the vast army of homeless refugees to return to their homes. Now, for that, the fighting must come to an end, and eventually it will end, but perhaps not until many more have lost their lives. I mean, right now we're talking that statistics of up to 100,000 people that have lost their lives since it started in March of 2011. Now, with us on the line this morning to get some clarity on the matter is Professor Robert Schreiner, a political studies lecturer at the University of Cape Town. Good morning, Professor, and thank you for taking our call.
Yes, good morning to you and your listeners.
Now, Professor, what can a missile strike like this actually bring about? Can we actually even have a hope that it will force some kind of democratization to happen in Syria?
I think we should see the attack or the possible attack as very largely unrelated to the conflict within Syria. If we go back to Libya, you will remember that they had a similar bombing, but it was designed for regime change. And it took months and months and months of very massive bombing. So if the United States does launch an attack on Syria, it will not be designed to impact on the civil war, and it won't be. It'll probably be very largely to try and salvage the credibility of Obama, who we'll recall, wisely or unwisely, said chemical weapon use was the red line. And that red line has been crossed, and I think that forced Obama into some kind of action. It will not impact on the outcome of the civil war.
And looking at today, we're standing at the precipice of a very important decision. How much chance does President Obama have of gaining support from the two parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, on eventually having his plan follow through?
I think that Obama was really undercut by David Cameron in the United Kingdom. I think they were all ready to go. And that basically shot the one leg of legitimacy, which Obama thought was very important. When he basically decided that he would not attack Syria, I think he basically opted out by asking Congress. And I think what is very important is, had he been serious in wanting a mandate from the American legislature, he could have appealed to the Senate, because the Senate, not the House of Representatives, has the constitutional mandate to declare war. And of course, as we know, the Senate is controlled by the Democratic Party. So if he was serious about wanting a mandate, he would have gone to the Senate and asked for that mandate. The House of Representatives, controlled by the Republicans, very hostile to Obama. So the bottom line is, any chance of getting both houses of Congress to agree to a strike on Syria is very improbable. Yeah. And I think when he went to Congress, he was basically saying, I'm not going to attack Syria.
Yeah. So if we were to look at the improbable actually going through. We've had reports saying that Damascus has vowed to retaliate and to stand against this attack, such that even if a third world war had to break out, then that would be the case. Is that something that we're actually looking at as a potential ramification of this action?
No, I don't think there'd be major ramifications. You might remember we heard the same thing with Saddam Hussein and Muammar Gaddafi. These tin-pot dictators, talk very loudly, but if you look at the military capabilities, Syria is a pretty rundown country militarily and economically. And the one thing we have to give the Americans is phenomenal technological sophistication. So I think we could predict with pretty close to 100% confidence that the American mission would be very successful in terms of limited goals, which would mean no American troops on the ground.
Yep.
And we would hear rhetorical mutterings from Assam and from some of his Hezbollah associates. But we might see some localized terrorism. But bottom line, no country in the world has the capacity to oppose American military might.
Professor, thank you very much for your time and your insights.
My pleasure. That's
Professor Robert Schreyer, Professor of Political Studies at the University of Cape Town, giving us some clarity and some more insights on the situation in Syria. Of course, we await the vote today by the Senate to find out, or Congress rather, to find out exactly what the United States action will be against this alleged chemical weapons attack that Syria has allegedly undertaken about a couple of weeks ago. We're going to take a quick ad break. We'll be back with more on Expresso.